So yes, so today what we're going to be talking about is tying your numbers to business metrics. And very excited about that. I think I've already gone through all the various kinds of rules and things like that. I need to update this because now you primarily just go to our website, yay, and you can get into our Slack channel. And our Slack channel has channels for where you find all the resources from today and the last 90 days, as well as things like CS and AI or digital and scaling CS, or our collaboration groups and all kinds of other things. So be sure to go and explore that so we can stay connected in between our Tuesday meetups. So let's dig in a little bit and get this set up so we can go to the breakout groups. And for those who are new, we do just sort of set up a topic, go to breakout groups for 20 minutes, and then come back for 20 minutes. That's kind of what we're set up for. And there's lots of resources here and things like that. So be sure to download the slides. And then also we're going to be taking notes during the session here. So when you do the breakout, so be sure to download those links. But getting back to the topic here. So translating numbers to business metrics, and you might have seen where I would said, metrics, schmetrics, and there's some debate on how you can even pronounce that. But like metrics are just like another number. Is it really, useful? Is it really helpful? Like after a while, you can kind of glaze over when you think of numbers, right? Like we all remember stories much more than we remembered numbers. And actually numbers do have a story, right? We do have a reason to pay attention to numbers. They have a purpose, or else it is kind of schmetrics, like who cares, right? So that's why actually Carly and I both get so excited about metrics. And I knew that when Carly and I were going to do a session together, that metrics would be a fun topic. So Carly, do you want to dig in a little bit to this? And of course, I'll dive in too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Jan, it's funny that you brought up telling stories, because we always hear this concept of telling stories with numbers, right? I'm sure everyone here has heard that concept at some point or another. Today is really like the precursor to that. So before you can tell a story with numbers, you have to know which numbers are going to resonate with who you're talking to. Because if you start sharing the wrong numbers with the wrong audience, A, they don't mean anything, and B, that audience is going to slowly lose trust in you. So if you're talking to a customer, right, us as CSMs or as CS professionals, you start talking about a number that your customer doesn't care about, that trust is slowly chipping away. So,
And sometimes even faster than that, right?
yeah.
They'll just
Yeah,
turn you off. They'll be like, whatever.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think another thing that a lot of folks don't realize is, especially in customer success, you don't just need numbers when it's time to renew an account or justify an expansion. If you don't understand what metrics someone cares about, forget getting them to open your email or get on a call with you, right? So it's not just important for the numerical things like renewing contracts, it's also important just to maintain a relationship with someone.
Yep. So part of it then is understanding the persona and who are you speaking to? What do they care about? And last week we were talking about personas in relation to customer outcomes, right? And part of what we were asking is, okay, who are the various types of people that are within an account? So when you take a look at whether it's an enterprise account or if it's an SMB or mid-market, depending, maybe it's a different industries, like there may be different types of people that are either making decisions about your products or using your products or the administrator of your product, and they all are going to care about slightly different things. So when you're thinking about it in terms of metrics, first you're thinking about what's important to them. How do they get hired or fired or promoted, or what do they need, what are they accountable for, and how does your product play into that? And so what sort of numbers are important in terms of that? As CSMs too, if you're or CS leaders, you're thinking about how you're getting renewals done for your product. Well, the CFO now is very often involved in every decision on every penny that's being spent in tech companies, especially. And so if that's the case, then what is that persona like? What do they care about? How are they making their decisions, right? So you want to think about that. You can also think about the metrics and how they relate to your own promotion or your own job search, right? Or in terms of a CS program, how you may need to essentially sort of right size your business. And we know that there's a lot of layoffs going on and things like that, but if you do bad decisions around that, if you're not doing essentially a good layoff, then what happens is you're doing more than one layoff. And that's how you end up in companies where there's like 3 layoffs, 4 rounds of layoffs, that sort of thing, right? And the anxiety that creates is not so good. So you want to understand, and this is actually why I just recently came out with a post-sales revenue leadership guide, but you want to understand kind of what's important for the investors, for your business, and you want to understand then what kinds of goals you're trying to hit. And based upon that, you may understand then how you're going to structure your business and how much of that's going to be led by humans versus, basically machines, equipment, digital. And so you have to think too, then, what is the most important kinds of results you're trying to get, and how does that right size your business, right? So all of those kinds of things you may think about from a leader perspective versus from a CSM role. What other kinds of things too about job search and promotions? I know you had a lot on that, Carly.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so everyone here who's had to write a resume in the last year or two, this is what we're talking about when you hear the advice of showcase your impact. This is exactly what we're talking about. It's not always just the impact that you had on the things that you were assigned, right? Or your KPIs, but you can also translate the things you impacted directly to business metrics. And that will up level things like your resume, things like your interview stories, if you can showcase how your impact at a lower level of the business has impacted things at a higher level. So it's critical for resume interview stories.
Yeah. And we do there's a slide here that's more about some of those topics. So be sure when you're downloading it that you're reading through some of these slides as well. Okay. And then who cares about what? You, your colleagues, your manager. What were you going to say about that again, Carly?
I think you kind of already touched on this, but
Yeah.
what I would add to it is think about it in the context of, and this is going to seem dramatic and silly, but it's helpful. If you're questioning if someone cares about a metric, just think, would this person lose sleep over this thing? Right? So a business development rep, a sales rep who's cold calling all day and trying to prospect and doing all the hard work that BDRs do, they care about email open rates. They care about meetings booked, right? But the CEO of that company is not losing sleep over email open rates. So that's just a little trick that I like to use. Like, would this person ever lose sleep over this metric? Because if not, it's probably not the right metric for them.
Great. Okay, now the thing that I'm really excited about is this whole concept of goal trees. And I want to sort of dig into what it is and how you use it. Do you want me to show the visual of a goal tree while you talk about it, Carly?
Yeah, you can show the goal tree. So
All
I'll
right.
introduce it as it's simply a map of metrics and how they relate. And a goal tree is going to look different at every company. It's going to look different for every department, for every team. So what you're looking at is just one example of probably trillions of goal trees that could exist. If you have ever worked in relationship management, you're probably used to an organization map, right? An org map where you have CEO, CMO, right? You have the C-suite at the top, and then their direct reports and their direct reports and their direct reports. It's the same idea, except instead of people, we are showing metrics. And goal trees are, first of all, they're just the best visual of an organization and what people at different levels care about. They can also be incredible tools if you are currently a CSM to do your account planning, to figure out what metrics in my accounts is my product or service impacting. Who owns these metrics? Who am I talking to? Who am I not talking to? I'll pause there. I'll let Jan add her 2 cents on goal trees.
Right. Well, and I think what's interesting about this too is if you take a look at, say, these different levels, like overall revenue, right? You know, you can think about the CEO, the CRO, CMO. You might also think about CFO, where they're thinking about cost and margins, right? And in that respect, actually kind of going through and thinking about these different levels of metrics can really be useful in understanding, like, what do I need to deliver on day to day? But also then when I'm reporting up, what are they going to care about? That I may have delivered these things, and some of those things might be what you call leading indicators versus lagging indicators, right? Because when you get to revenue or overall cost, that's really a lagging indicator. That already happened. But all the things that you're doing are going to have an impact on how you get to that. And so that's another way to sort of thinking about leading and lagging metrics. And who, when you're speaking to different people at different levels, you can even do this not only for your own organization, but for your customers' organizations, and thinking about, you know, where do these things land? So I don't know, are there any questions about this? Because I think this is pretty much our overview, and then we're going to head you over to discuss not necessarily goal trees, but talking about metrics. But goal trees are sort of a new idea that people aren't always looking at. Yeah? Is it Shay? Is that how you pronounce your name? Okay, good.
Yeah, that's right.
Great.
It's great to meet you in person, Jan, and hi
Yeah.
everybody.
You have a great last name.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Love this. Carly, love this. Who would you say is developing this goal tree? Is this something you are developing in post-sales customer success? Is this something you're leaning in on with the pre-sales team to develop? I'd love to understand the process here.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say it depends on your org who has the capacity to do this. In an ideal world, if CSMs are partnered with sales, especially on any post-sale functions like renewals and upsells, this would be essentially the foundation of the sales and CS managers collaboration, right? So you're sitting down to do your account plan for the quarter, or however often you're actually doing your account planning and white spacing. Instead of just looking at an org map of stakeholders, names, and titles, you're also collaborating on, okay, what did you uncover through your conversations? What have I uncovered through my conversations? Oh, I know this because I work with this other SaaS company, and this is how they have their metrics set up. And then you eventually continue to build this out for your account. So I would say CS and sales together.
That's great. I think it requires having a really good partnership with pre-sales.
Sure does.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
But also sometimes if you start with what they care about, you can kind of lead them into what you care about. You know, if you're finding that that partnership isn't readily available.
Good. Thanks.
Sometimes it happens. Randy, what's your question here?
So defining this for your customers makes a lot of sense. I know one of the challenges I've been hearing in the industry is some companies don't put metrics from CSM's perspective. Can you relate this back to helping the business if they don't define metrics for you personally as a CSM to help define your goals as a way to kind of correlate that? Can that be something you can kind of use it as a way to kind of define the metrics for you personally?
I think so. I think, and let me know if this doesn't answer your question, but if I was in that scenario where my company didn't really have metrics, or I, as an individual contributor, didn't have metrics, but I wanted to show my impact, I would probably put my best guess together of what this looks like for my company, specifically for my organization, right? So I might not have like marketing's arm of the goal tree on there, just my organization. And then I'd probably bring it to my manager in a one-on-one and say, I'm pretty sure that through doing X, Y, and Z, I'm impacting these metrics. Is that true? Is that how you think about things? Is that how leadership thinks about things? Does that answer your question?
No, it does. Yeah, I just wanted to
Okay.
kind of correlate the two. So, I mean, it's just so that there's certain circumstances you could use this as a reference to kind of point back to your impact on the business from how it's
Yeah.
impacting your customers.
Yeah, I can really quick share how I've actually used this in my career. I created a role for myself once, and I sat down and I said, these are the things I want to do all the way down here. And then I was like, how can I map these to metrics? And then how can I bring them up to the top? So when I go to leadership and say, you should let me do this job that I came up with, they'll say yes. And it works.
Nice.
So it does work.
Nice. All right. Well, good. So let's prepare for the breakout questions. Cynthia Silva, or Sylvia. Say your name 3 times fast and it becomes a different name. Then she just put the links up there again. So you'll see the breakout notes there as well as the slides. But the breakout questions, in what areas of your day-to-day work or job search do you talk about metrics, and who do you talk to them about? And where could you do a better job of translating metrics to appeal to the audience you're interacting with? Who is your audience? So that's what we're going to send you off to go do.
Carly, I'm so glad you came in on today. That's awesome.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I did too.
We should get you back to do some of your
Begging
job stuff,
Jan-
though.
I've been begging Jan for a year.
Jan,
I don't know
what?
that that's true.
Every week. And
Yeah, right. Every day you're just DMing me every day. Today?
she's like,
Is
I don't
this
know. I don't
today?
think so. Carly. We're kind of booked up. Maybe another.
Sure, that's it. No, we've been thinking about doing this for a while. I'm glad we finally
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
So awesome. Yeah, and there are a few people who joined just at the break, so be sure to put your LinkedIn over in the chat. And what kinds of things do we come up with here? What sort of insights or aha moments should everyone hear about? Want to be sure to share the love here. Carly, did anything come up in your group that you hadn't thought about before?
Yeah, we had a cool conversation around, we had a team lead in the room talking about how their organization maybe doesn't do the best job of explaining how their team impacts business metrics. We kind of brainstormed as a group and came up with an idea to have the department head, the VP, just simply present to the team on how he thinks about metrics and how his team impacts his metrics. So simple ask, hey, can you teach us how you think about this? Could make a huge difference for the people on that team.
Absolutely. Alyssa, sorry, I wasn't sure if you were coming off mute to share something. Whoops. Alyssa, did I lose you? Okay, sorry. Randy, what were you thinking about?
In our group, one of the things that was talked about was having the lack of data, right? Or even the data that was not being properly given to the CSMs to quantify those metrics in a way that was meaningful. So it was almost like not being as transparent. The company was not being as transparent to the CSM in regards to either the data was had disparate systems, and or was not being provided in a way that they could quantify to their customers or for themselves the meaning behind those metrics. And that could be a problem if it's a company that doesn't either have a good data system to take that data and be able to parse out information in an appropriate way. So that was an issue that one of our individuals had mentioned in their role.
And that is the most common thing where companies don't set up their data very well, right? And I see some of that over in the chat as well. And or they set up all these separate databases, like what is their CRM doesn't speak to, say, where they're doing all their support tasks, or doesn't speak to just like basically anywhere that there's data, right? Like it just doesn't connect. And by asking those questions and saying, hey, I want to do X, I want to know if I'm improving this other thing, like whatever it might be, if you have a reason behind it and it connects to a business goal or what you think could be a business goal, like that's a great way to start moving the needle on that. Say, well, the best time to clean up, your data is maybe like 3 years ago, but the second best time to clean up your data is today. Just start dealing with it today. So, no one's perfect. That's okay. Let's do what we can. Especially with a good business reason, a good why. What other thoughts were coming up? Lynn, I might call on you. I see you
Hi.
there.
Hi, Jan.
What were
I
you
know
thinking about?
it's been forever. I was excited to
Yeah.
see that you guys had 100 people on here.
I know, it's
quite some time.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in our group, we were just talking about how we hadn't seen it in that tree format before.
Mm-hmm.
It's super interesting because we definitely have that conversation with CSM. So it's not just you're talking to this level and this is what the metrics they care about. What does their boss care about? What does their boss care about? So we are thinking it more of the sort of external customer side.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I mentioned, we're working on revamping our mutual success plan templates. And we're trying to figure out like org charts, like how to make sure that we've mapped something out in there that shows here are the day-to-day contacts, here are the groups that they go up into. So, we're a sales enablement learning platform. Is it up into the marketing team or the sales team or an enablement team or operations? Like that kind of thing matters to us. So we're mapping the actual org chart, but seeing it instead replaced by what do they care about? Like that's what we're trying people to think about. It's just like visually, I think it was a perfect fit for like, here's the org chart of our chain from our day-to-day contact up until the, executive buyer.
Yeah.
We need to be thinking about for each level, what is the metric that each person needs to see to get buy-in to eventually get us to renewal, and
Yeah.
thinking about not just, is it logins, but what does the person at the top actually care about? Like, what are the business impacts that are being made? So yeah, I think we're all like, it's definitely a concept that we've talked about, but never seen visually before. So it was a really interesting take for sure.
And I love how that connects to, although you weren't personally here, but we were talking last week about, persona, outcomes by persona. So yeah, I really love that. But Chloe, your hand went down. I want to be sure that we get you. I don't know where you went now.
Oh, hi, I'm here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I ended up asking it in the chat, but two quick questions is
Yeah.
how do you know when you're interviewing somewhere that a company's data is easily accessible for CSMs, or that they have a way to access that? And then two, who has like had luck influencing change and how data is given to CSMs to present to customers at their organization, or like how do you tackle that?
Well, I just personally, I would say, your best way of getting that information is just asking during the interview process. Just say, I found it to be really powerful when you can show metrics when you're talking to customers, and, it's really helpful to have a way of pulling those metrics. What's the state of your data and how much do you use data to show, customer outcomes and that sort of thing? Just start talking it up. That shows that you are rooted in terms of your own practice in that way, but it also gets them talking about it. I mean, and again, don't be disheartened if they say, it's not in the best state, because that's often the case. But I don't know. Any other thoughts on that, Carly? You want to share on that?
Yeah, I love this question. I just threw 2 questions in the chat. So if you're interviewing, you can say, what kind of data do your CSMs have access to make decisions about their accounts? And you can probe. So if you have a perspective on what data should be available, if they say, oh, we have A, B, and C, you can say, oh, what about D? Is that on your roadmap? Or why not D? Right? So challenge them a little bit, see if they're thinking about data, if they care about data, if they're prioritizing data. And then in a slightly different angle, if you're trying to figure out what data they have to speak to with customers on things like ROI, what kind of data is your team enabled to speak to when presenting on ROI with customers?
Yeah. Jillian, your hand was up. I know there were like 3 people who had hands up, but I don't know where it went. But so
Yeah, I just took it down. I partly the time, and then and also it was related to what Carly said too. In our group, we were talking about both metrics that we would look for and use to share with customers to show value, and then inversely what metrics we had that were more internal, kind of related to customer health, I guess, you know. So, but I'm cognizant of the time. So.
okay, well, we'll go just a couple more minutes. I know that it is getting late, but Melissa, what contributions were you thinking about?
So I come from a data analyst background, and we're talking
Love
about
it.
metrics. And
Yeah.
for all the new people that are coming into customer success, the one thing you need to learn is a pivot table. You can go on YouTube and figure, learn it. It's very easy. It's in Excel. So what it does is it summarizes, if you have a long report of data, like let's say you have a bunch of like out of stocks, this product went out of stock, and it shows the zip codes, and you have all these different zip codes. You can pivot this information and see which this one product had out of stock at this zip code 5 million times, and it summarizes the data. It pivots for you. And so that's a great way. When you are looking at lots of data, you can aggregate that and pivot it into a summarized story that you can tell your customer.
Yeah. Excel is definitely your friend, and you can just watch a couple of YouTube videos and find ways to get the data to speak to you. Another thing that we'll be doing is building a custom GPT, and there are ways in which you can get custom GPTs to do some of that for you. But if you haven't tried it yourself first, if you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't know what sort of number you're sort of expecting, it's really hard to know if AI is telling stories on you, right? So it's always good to have a command of your subject. And it's always a great idea to learn how to do that firsthand.
Yeah, because
that.
when I would go into Excel, it showed different from the dashboard of the company I last worked for. It did not match. And I found out that through a lot of different filters that were not supposed to be there, were there, it didn't match up. So it is good to check your system or something against. So yeah.
There you go. Yeah, there's sometimes white lies that get
technological difficult
filtered out, so to speak. Was there one other hand that was up that I missed? I don't want to miss you there. Didn't see who it was. Okay. Well, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate all of the contributions. We can continue this conversation over in the Slack. So if you didn't sign up for Slack, you can go to the CxXchange.com and go and sign up there. And, just continue the conversation and come back next week. We're going to build custom GPTs with Divya. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Great to see you.
Thank you, Carly.
Be sure to sign up for the Zoom registration. Zoom registration will get you in next week. Okay. Awesome. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Jen.
Great to
Appreciate
see
it.
you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.